The year is 2003. After years of tensions and military buildup, war explodes in Iraq. After a military coup places Saddam Hussein as leader of Iraq, Kuwait, the United States, and 48 other coalition countries launch an invasion to overthrow the Ba'athist government.
American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
The conflict lasted 8 years. Thousands dead. Millions displaced. Lives ruined and possessions destroyed. During the 8 years of conflict, approximately 9.2 million Iraqi people were displaced. The journey to security was not an easy one, and continues to be challenging even up until today. Artist and refugee Wissam al-Badri shares his story as a refugee that needed to flee his house because of the war.
It's like the Arabs, if you Google anything about Arab, it's just always with a gun, being violent, or being abusive, right? Like we could never look beautiful. And to me, that didn't sit well. I was born in Nasiriyah, Iraq in 1984. I remember as a child, like I was sitting outside our house and you hear the jets flying over bombing the Iraqi military. Then you hear a few minutes later, the Iraqi military bombing the civilians. My grandmother screaming at my mom, you need to get your kids out of the city, you need to get your kids out of the city. There was blood all over the streets. Like that was my first introduction to people dying and death, is that I thought they're going to sleep.
According to the UNHCR, approximately 3 million Iraqi people are in need of humanitarian aid, and 1.2 million continue to be internally displaced. Sam's family considers themselves the lucky ones getting the opportunity to move to America. However, for the millions of other refugees, it wasn't so easy. Millions are unable to get to the United States, and for those who have, they have trouble finding stability. Mother and refugee Imam al-Azawi talks about how coming to the US was for her. Imam and her husband also struggle finding a job. As she puts it,
you have to start from zero. Let's start from the beginning.
But for some Iraqi Americans, integrating themselves into American culture is the challenge. The Alumna family finds themselves struggling with that very issue. Mr. and Mrs. Alumna's son talks about how his Iraqi culture and American culture are two different worlds.
I have an American culture that I've gotten used to over the years, and then I still have my Muslim culture. It feels like you're living in two worlds because you can't forget either.
Life is seemingly going well for the Alumna family in Michigan. However, Mr. Alumna shares his story of a scary interaction with his family during a vacation to Miami.
To go back to Florida, which is a place I love, because a very important thing to me is the weather. It was the 4th of July. I took my family for the fireworks at the landing in Jacksonville. Some guy came to us and called my wife a terrorist. She was so frightening, she was so scared. We were not terrorists, we're just like an Americans.
Iraqi refugees have gone through many hardships and struggles since the beginning of the Iraq War, and continue to even to this day. Wissam, Imam, and the Alumna family are just a few out of many, and we're lucky enough to get a microphone to speak out about it. Despite all these challenges, Iraqi immigrants work tirelessly to preserve their culture and way of life in hopes that one day they can live surrounded by peace and justice.